The world's oldest profession still isn't considered a job. Why is that? If you don't know what I'm talking about sex work.
The oldest profession in the world, prostitution.
And even though they say that, a lot of society tends to portray sex workers not as professionals, but people who need rescuing.
I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today.
Somehow I find that very hard to believe.
But hold up, sex workers are workers too. Some studies estimate sex work revenues to be around $15 billion. And for many people, it's how they pay their bills. Which makes you wonder, is it time to legislate sex work as real work? Since sex work is a wide spectrum, I checked in first with Lana Rae, a cam girl and porn star who works exclusively online. So what shoots do you do here? Like the porn shoots?
I do that, and I also do like cosplay shoots.
And do you have like a director, or you just
no,
do it all yourself?
I mean, like I write the script myself.
Lana has fans whom she interacts with through streaming sites. Do you feel like you're ever exploited by any of the other sites that you use, any of the other tech sites?
No, I don't feel like that.
Like in the past, you've had stuff pirated, you said? Like people have stolen your content before?
I mean, I feel like in any industry with content creation, there's always going to be piracy.
What would you say the biggest issues you face are then?
Let me think about this.
She couldn't think of anything, so I asked her about FOSTA SESTA, a package of controversial bills that passed last year meant to fight online sex trafficking, but actually curtailed sex workers' freedom to do business online. How did FOSTA SESTA affect you?
I don't think it really impacts like cam girls and like independent sex workers.
Didn't you have like that raffle you used to do? Like where people could meet you in person, and then after FOSTA SESTA, ManyVids wouldn't let you do it anymore?
I had to take it down, even though it was just like meeting up with a person and like hanging out with them. For whatever reason, I'm not allowed to like meet up with people under any circumstance.
And does that cut into your earnings?
I find my ways around it. I actually do like a thing every year where my most important regulars all come to Comic-Con, which I think is in October.
Oh, I see.
And they all like hang out at my house.
What?
Yeah.
You have them hang out in your house?
Yeah, for like 2 or 3 days. I would never meet these people alone.
Right. Do you ever have sex with other people in it?
No, I don't.
It's just you.
It's just
like
me.
Using sex toys and doing whatever.
Yeah, I'm not against that, but that's what I'm comfortable with. I kind of just want to be known as like an independent sex worker. That's what makes me happy.
Lana was an example of a sex worker who's in pretty much the most ideal situation. You know, she's her own boss, she works from home, she doesn't really have any issues, and none of the laws really affect her bottom line, like FOSTA SESTA or criminalization, because what she is doing is technically legal. So now I'm gonna go check in with sex workers on other ends of the spectrum who might be more affected by the laws that they have to work under. Gilda is a full-service sex worker and undocumented immigrant currently protected under DACA. We're looking at Gilda's website, and this is how she gets most of her clients, right? Or all of your clients through online?
Yeah, I send them to the page to look at my patronage, my pricing.
What's patronage? Oh, your pricing.
Yes.
Stats. Standard introduction, 2 hours, $2,000.
Yes.
What's a prompt encounter?
It's just a 1 hour. We always come up with like fancy names for each of the things.
Oh, I see.
And then there's the full day and overnights.
Oh.
So like 2 meals and activities. One of them wanted to take me on a haunted house tour, which we're planning to do in October.
And you get paid to go on that.
Yeah. I'm kind of new to this pricing though, and I'm new to being in this tier, but yeah, it takes work to climb up and
to get to that tier. But you built it.
Yeah.
Yourself. Over the last, like, however many years?
Yeah. I think 2 years I've been working to get to this point.
And what about your immigration status? Like,
well, I've accepted since I was a teen that I'm probably never going to become a citizen.
And how old were you when you crossed?
I was 5.
Wow.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah.
So you've been undocumented this whole time. Is that part of why you do sex work in the first place? Because you're undocumented, or is there another reason?
It was a factor. I think when Trump was elected, it was 2016 or something, I just decided to be full out about it. I was like, wow, nothing matters. So like you have to stop playing respectability politics because it doesn't really work.
So you used to do sex work in a legalized setting in Nevada, because that's the only place in America where it's legal, but you didn't like it.
No, Nevada's a really bad place to do sex work. They take 50% of all your profits. Yeah, it's not fun. There's only about, like, I think 400 or less sex workers employed at any given time at the brothels. They're all owned by white people, and if you look at the people that are employed at these brothels, they tend to be cis white women. And there's gay men in this industry, there's trans women in this industry, but you don't see them at the brothels, so you don't have a lot of agency.
And now you're a full-time escort and full-service sex worker?
Yeah.
She used to get most of her customers through Backpage, a classified site that was shut down by FOSTA SESTA for trafficking, which forced consenting sex workers to find new ways to work.
I used to have like a bunch of Bitcoin on there, and there was like a wallet for Backpage. And then when Backpage went down, all that money disappeared, and no one really talked about.
How much money did you lose?
It was at least 100.
Okay. So like after FOSTA SESTA happened, you kind of like had to build up your own presence through your own personal accounts.
But many weren't that lucky, and the sex workers I talked to, like they kind of just...
What did they have to do as a result?
They fell back on like their former customers, their regulars. Maybe they'll get phone calls from their former manager, pimp, or whatever, like, hey, you know, Sister FOSTA passed, if you need any work, let me know.
And why is that bad?
Because it just gives you less options, and then you have less choices, and less choices kind of make it more dangerous, you know?
Right. Then what would your ideal solution be?
There's a lot of different solutions that need to be implemented. Public housing, public education, public health care would help a lot of sex workers, as well as the decriminalization of immigration for marginalized people, like from Honduras, and the decriminalization of sex work and drugs.
And decriminalization might actually be a possibility. This summer, 2 state senators in New York introduced a bill to decriminalize sex work. What is the Cliff Notes version of it?
For people to exchange sex, even between consenting adults, there are severe criminal penalties, and what we want to do is make sure that those very harmful criminal consequences are totally eliminated from the law in New York State, so that we can finally help sex workers live their lives and not have to live in fear anymore.
Right. And to be clear, this isn't full legalization of prostitution. It's decriminalization.
That's correct. We want to hold traffickers, aka pimps, accountable for what they're doing for exploiting and oppressing, the sex workers. But what we want is to empower the sex workers to be able to report violence against themselves.
Any idea of the numbers, even though it's an underground economy? Like how many people it would affect, or the dollar amount?
We don't really have an accurate count, and that's part of the problem.
And we do know that thousands of people every year in New York are arrested for prostitution-related offenses, and so at the very least we know that many people every year would be positively impacted by decriminalization.
Right. So it's also a criminal justice issue, it sounds like, 'cause a lot of people of color, trans people of color, get arrested for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's the biggest opposition you might have to this bill, or facing right now?
Where to begin?
Besides everybody else.
Yeah, right? I think exactly. It's not an easy feat to have taken this up. The biggest challenge is miseducation, right? I think it's miseducation, it's sexism and misogyny, right? And it's that, absolutely, it's transphobia, gender-based discrimination.
Are both of you friends with actual sex workers now?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the people who are closest to the issue are closest to the solution, and so a lot of the advocacy is being led by people who are currently or previously in the sex industry, and it's been a great opportunity to get to know those people.
And this is the result of a grassroots campaign. Yeah. Exactly, and we're leading policy, we're leading legislation by the people who need it.
Yeah.
Which led me right back to the grassroots beginning with RJ Thompson, director of the Sex Workers Project in New York. RJ, you are a sex worker and a lawyer.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, I started doing sex work in terms of go-go dancing and stripping in undergrad in college. Over the years, I went to law school, and unlike corporate lawyers, public interest lawyers don't make six-figure salaries. So
Right.
I decided to get into the porn industry, was in the gay porn industry for many years. And then that moved to full service work, as we call it. So that helped me get out of debt.
And then now, are you a practicing lawyer as well?
Yeah, so I'm
You work with a lot of sex workers?
Yeah, I'm the managing director of the Sex Workers Project at the Urban Justice Center. That is an NGO here in New York City. We do direct legal services for sex workers and survivors of trafficking, trying to change the laws to decriminalize sex work.
So how would the decrim bill work into all of this?
When sex work comes out of the shadows and is destigmatized and not criminalized, it actually lessens people's vulnerability to being trafficked. Have you ever heard someone say, let's abolish farm work because there's human trafficking in farm labor? No. Do people say, let's get rid of restaurants because there's trafficking in kitchens? No. It's
the
only
stigma.
the stigma around sex work that they claim we should abolish it to get rid of trafficking.
And have you experienced it yourself? Because you're obviously less mindful, or like you don't care about the stigma as much.
I'm Native American, but I have
Yeah.
white passing privilege, I have male privilege. I am less susceptible to arrest.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm less susceptible to being trafficked.
Right.
I'm a big guy also, which helps protect myself.
Yeah.
All these things, I want to use my privilege to speak out when other people can't, because I also want people to know that sex workers are people with advanced degrees, we're people of all faiths, all religions, all genders.
Yeah. So if you look at what's really going on in the sex work industry, it's clear that it's not about sex. It's actually a criminal justice issue. It's a labor issue. It's a human rights issue. And if we continue to criminalize it, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, who is really f***ing